Hi everyone, welcome to today's Face Fact podcast by Dr. Yusra. On our podcast today, we are talking about my latest investment into our clinic, an amazing device called an infrared sauna. I have told you why I decided to invest in this after checking my own biological aging and what an infrared sauna can do for you, your health, your wellness, and your skin. I hope you enjoy. Hi everyone, welcome to today's podcast. Today we're talking about one of the newest technologies we brought into our clinic, something I am obsessed with, something that I want to use every day, but unfortunately don't get the time to, and something that I love, that our staff love, that our patients love. And people have been talking about this globally, and it is the infrared LED light sauna. Mm-hmm. So this is sitting in our wellness suite, and we're using this as part of our Journey Back to Health programs. So today we're talking about the science behind infrared saunas, why you should use them, what the science is showing regarding improvement in general wellness, and how this can complement some of your treatments that you might be having in clinic and just general well-being. So I've got Sophie.
You have
Sophie
me.
Lofi. She just told me to call her Sophina, but I like Sophie Lofi.
I don't mind. Anyone will do.
So Sophie, you've got a bunch of questions regarding infrared saunas. Hit me. And I'm going tonight.
You're going tonight.
Tell me why, yeah, I
Okay.
texted my husband. I'm like, I'm going to sauna tonight. Go.
First question. So what is an infrared sauna and how does it differ from a traditional sauna?
Okay. So an infrared sauna uses infrared technology to create heat instead of traditional saunas, which may use dry heat or even wet heat, so to speak, to raise the air temperature. This is raising the core temperature without so much the skin temperature. So in an infrared sauna, the skin temperature only rises by about 4 to 5 degrees Celsius.
Okay.
Whereas in a traditional sauna, it might be more, which can be uncomfortable. There are limitations on how long you can stay in a normal sauna as compared to an infrared sauna. An infrared sauna is all about raising the core temperature to create what we call a thermal response or thermoregulatory response, because our bodies are designed to be in homeostasis. Homeostasis is like this place, this temperature of the body, which is kind of neutral.
Okay.
So when you are in extreme heat, so to speak, when the core body temperature rises, it induces a response body-wide, which includes the neuroendocrine response. So the brain starts to respond to try and get your temperature down. You might also start to produce sweat. There's also a cardiovascular response where the heart rate increases. And there's also cytoprotective mechanisms that participate in restoring homeostasis. And there is something called heat shock proteins. So basically, when you are put in cold or hot, but we're talking about hot today, there are this release of heat shock proteins. And this seems to improve actually our overall well-being, because whilst generalized stress isn't so good, putting our body under some form of stress, whether that is physiological, running, or thermal, kind of high exposure to high temperatures, that helps with our body's healing responses.
Okay. Thank you. My next question leading on from that is, what are the main benefits of using an infrared sauna?
So the infrared saunas will improve circulation because your heart rate is pumping. So it induces this cardiovascular response and the heart rate starts to pump. There have been numerous clinical studies looking at if there is an exercise mimetic response, which means does it mimic going, running or exercise? And to a certain extent, yes, because you have this accelerated cardiovascular response, which also happens when you're running, for example. And that seems to help with improving the generalized circulation of the body. It also helps with detoxification because you're sweating all the crap out, so to speak. And also with muscle recovery and stress reduction. But really and truly, let's talk about the wellness perspective, because that's why I got it. I actually bought the machine, I don't know, a few months ago, I think it was. Was it in the summer?
In the summer.
Okay. So in the summer, I went to a a conference called Health Optimization, HOP, Health Optimization Summit. That was it. And actually before that, I had been reading a lot around how to improve your general health, because I had done my biological age test, which I will talk to you guys about on another podcast, which is a test to check how well you're aging. Because guess what, guys? How well you're aging actually has very little to do with how many years you have been on Earth, and also very little to do with how well your mom or dad aged. 80% of biological aging is dependent on your lifestyle.
Okay.
So in other words, I might be 25. We're just going to pretend that's my age. And that's my chronological age, so to speak. That's how many years I have been on planet Earth. But your biological age is how quickly you're aging.
Yeah.
So biologically, even if you've been on Earth for 25 years, if you're aging on the fast lane because of stress and lifestyle and whatever else, biologically, you might be 50, you know? And we have got patients who we've done their biological age test and they're 20 years older biologically than chronologically, and might have other kind of systemic issues going on, and that has helped to explain. So, and also you might chronologically be 25, but biologically you might be 18 if you're really lucky, right? So that's down to your lifestyle. 80% is down to lifestyle. So when I did my biological age, I was older than I wanted to be, older than I thought I would be. It wasn't horrific. I think it was 4 or 5 years older, but it still horrified me. And I was like, no, I need to age in the slow lane, and I need to be an active participant, proactive in how I am managing my life, my mindset, my health and well-being. And so one of the things that I started to research was the health benefits of an infrared sauna. And there are so many studies looking at the positive impacts it can have on the neuroendocrine system and the cardiovascular system. Okay. So a lot of these are retrospective, and there are limitations of some retrospective studies because of trying to essentially figure out what might have, if you're looking at someone, let's say some people who went to use the sauna 2 to 3 times a week compared to those who never used the sauna, and those who used the sauna lived 15 years longer, and those who didn't use the sauna didn't live as long. Is that because of the sauna, or is it because of their lifestyle? So how are you checking for what we call confounding variables? Yeah. But there are many, many studies that have been done. A big one was in Finland, looking at people's longevity, their health span, their lifespan. And there have been meta-analyses as well. And a meta-analysis is essentially an assessment of all of the different papers out there, Cochrane reviews, randomized control trials, cohort studies, prospective, retrospective studies, which are all different types of, different degrees of scientific literature that have different levels of what we call levels of evidence. And they take all those together and they look at what are the generalized findings. And they have found that using a sauna consistently, and consistency is a big thing, and I'm talking about 2 to 3 times a week over a long period of time, will induce these heat shock proteins, will stimulate the cardiovascular system, will stimulate the neuroendocrine system, and the cytoplasmic and wound healing responses, aid with muscle recovery, reduce chronic inflammation, reduce the onset and rate of acceleration of Alzheimer's disease, and also reduce mortality, all-cause mortality, which is death by any cause, but also cardiovascular disease. Okay. Now, in terms of percentages, there was a study, the KIHD findings, that revealed that men who reported using the sauna 2 to 3 times a week had a risk of developing cardiovascular disease, which was 27% lower than amongst those men who reported using it only once a week. Okay, and that was a study published in 2015. So what that is telling us is actually consistency and frequency is important when it comes to this impact. And it's dose dependent. So in terms of temperature, if you come into ours, I mean, I got the fancy ones because, you know, why not? But also I thought, I want my patients to enjoy it. I want to enjoy it. So we've got a little screen in there so people can come in, have their privacy, watch something if they want to chill out. Usually I'm watching some kind of educational thing on Netflix. And it keeps my mind stimulated and I'm learning something while I'm in there. Because really what you want to do is you want to use it 2 to 3 times a week at approximately 60 degrees Celsius for at least 40 minutes. Now, the infrared sauna can be used between 40 degrees Celsius and 100 degrees Celsius, but approach with care. The great thing is it is raising your core body temperature, but you're not going to burn your skin. I also got the one with LED lights, red LED lights, because LED light therapy has been shown to reduce inflammation on the skin and improve collagen. And hey, I want to look younger too. So, and then another really interesting fact is it helped to reduce neurodegenerative disease.
Okay.
So the KIHD studies revealed that frequent sauna use was associated with reduced risk of developing age-related neurodegenerative disease, including Alzheimer's and dementia, in a dose-dependent manner. In other words, men that use the sauna 4 to 7 times a week had a 66% lower risk of developing dementia and 65% lower risk of developing Alzheimer's disease compared to men who reported using the sauna only once a week.
Wow.
I know. Are you coming in now?
Yeah. I'll meet you there later.
So it's a massive thing. And so in terms of kind of adjusting for confounding variables, that is a subject of debate, and people have been talking about this. But these heat shock proteins seem to also reduce the amount of chronic inflammation that people have in their body. Okay. And if we go back to biological aging, there are 12 hallmarks of aging, which means that there are aging scientists who have looked at how we age over a period of time, have looked at the different cellular processes that happen when we age, and they identified 12 key cellular processes, which essentially change as we age. And seemingly, there is a massive decline in cellular function that happened at 3 key stages of our lives. And the most recent study was actually published this year in the summer, August 2024, that looked at a huge number of patients, various different markers, including microbial diversity, including chronic inflammation, etc. And they found that telomere lengths and so on. Sorry to interrupt the podcast. I am coming to you to say if you're enjoying this, then I would really love for you to like, subscribe, follow along, and share this with anyone who might find this useful. We are investing a lot of time, energy, and resources into bringing you the best of the best in education, all about faces, bodies, aesthetics, and wellness. And I want to continue to do that, but I need you to subscribe. And if you can, if you have any questions, if you want us to address any particular topics, then please leave a comment and we will certainly create videos for you to address those. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy. So these 12 hallmarks of aging include chronic inflammation, which is heightened C-reactive protein, heightened inflammatory markers without the presence of acute inflammation or trauma. So you're in a state of chronic inflammation, which is going to eat up your body's existing fuel sources, your NAD+. And that's a topic for another day. And we've done a whole podcast on NAD+. And also can result in mitochondrial dysfunction. It has this bidirectional relationship with every other hallmark of aging. You get telomere attrition, which is shortening of your telomeres, etc. So chronic inflammation is a huge one, and so is telomere attrition. So actually, infrared saunas have seemed to aid in a wide array of hallmarks of aging. So like I say, reduces all-cause mortality as well.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
I think I'll be in there.
And muscle recovery and chronic pain. I mean, this is another thing. Like, for example, Lane, who is our clinic manager, who has kindly allowed me to share her story, recently went through kind of a skin journey, facial harmonization. So she looks stunning, and she walks in now with a kind of bounce in her step, doesn't she? Even though she can't bounce, actually, because she's in so much pain. And I say to her, get in the sauna, because that has been something that has proven to reduce chronic pain. So there's different modalities, different temperatures, but generally speaking, 60 degrees, 40 minutes a time, at least 2 to 3 times a week. Fantastic for generalized health.
Perfect. How does it help in terms of skin health and aesthetics?
Okay, so infrared saunas have been shown to increase collagen synthesis and also reduce inflammation. And like we say, because it's increasing your heart rate, and it has this, it's not really exercise mimetic effect, but cardiovascular, in terms of cardiovascular rates, this has been studied, and as compared to performing exercise in females. And studies have shown that those people who are using the sauna had high cardiovascular rates, similar to if they were exercising, which means that they're getting this pumping of the blood around the body. That increased circulation is helping with clearing up toxicity, improving nutritional flow, oxygen flow to the skin. More so, the infrared sauna that we have also has the red LED light therapy, which has been clinically proven time again to penetrate the skin, reduce inflammation, and improve collagen production, because our body is actually made to absorb light, even if you're blind, even if your eyes are closed. We've talked about this when we talked about lasers. Essentially, if you think about when you're in the sun, your body responds to light. You might not feel it, but there are packets of energy that come from light sources that are absorbed into the skin, and everything is energy. So it's a conversion of energy, right? So you get this light that comes from the sun, for example, or from red light or from green light, and different lights have different packets of energy or photonic energy. And the way that light hits the skin and reacts with the skin can either be photochemical, photothermal, or photoacoustic, also known as photomechanical. So that's how lasers work. You can have a laser shooting at a very high rate on the skin, and it causes a sound that's called a photoacoustic effect, and mechanically shatters pigments, like a Q-switch laser. Then there's things like CO2 lasers that when they hit the skin, they heat up, the energy is converted and results in heat because it's absorbed by water. Okay, so I always explain this first, because otherwise people go, what do you mean the skin absorbs light? It's designed to do that. It's designed to absorb light. So there's that transfer of energy. And red light is absorbed and stimulates ATP production, which stimulates the activity of the fibroblasts, which improves collagen production and collagen synthesis. So people basically notice an improvement in skin texture, skin quality. And actually a 2019 study in the Dermatological Research and Practice journal reported that participants who used infrared saunas for 12 weeks experienced a 25% improvement in skin elasticity and a reduction in fine lines and wrinkles.
Wow. It's a no-brainer, really.
It's a no-brainer. This is infrared. This is not all sauna. It's really important to differentiate the two, because an infrared heat it promotes deeper penetration into the dermal layers. So you get this increased cell renewal and essentially cell turnover as well.
Perfect. Now, you touched on this before, but how can infrared saunas help with weight management?
I think this is a debatable thing. It has been studied. There was a study done in a scientific study in Scientific Reports in 2017 that demonstrated that infrared saunas elevate heart rates. Also, a more recent study that compared women using infrared saunas as an alternative to exercise. And I would not say that this is an alternative to exercise. I would still say to my patients, you need to get out there, you need to be exercising, because one of the things that we get with exercise is a reduction in oxygen. So you end up in a hypooxygenated or deoxygenated state. And so you need to suck air in. So you go, so that act of being in a deoxygenated state for at least 5 minutes a day has been shown to improve longevity, improve the clearance of toxins, and massively improves health span. Okay, and also not just that, serotonin levels, etc. There have been studies that have shown that using an infrared sauna helps with depression and anxiety, but in terms of weight loss, again, there have been studies that have shown that it can help with weight loss because, and it's compared to I would say, moderate levels of exercise. But that looked at cardiovascular rates. So they looked at the elevation in heart rate. What they did not measure is breathing rates. And so something that you get from exercise is that deoxygenated state, which you don't get from using an infrared sauna. So I don't think it's a like for like.
No.
I don't think you go, I'm just going to sit in a sauna and that's going to help me lose weight. You are probably going to lose weight because when you are in a period where your heart rate is elevated, you will lose calories, you will consume calories. And what they found is that sitting in a sauna for about 40 minutes at 60 degrees consumed calories, or you had a calorie burn of somewhere between 200 to 600 calories per session. Which is massive. It's kind of like breastfeeding, like breastfeeding consumes about 500 calories per session. I mean, it's not like breastfeeding, but breastfeeding will consume calories. You'll get a calorie burn, but it's not an alternative to exercise, you see? So yes, it may aid in weight loss, in fat loss, in reducing your calorific kind of output, so to speak. But I would just be really mindful of not to say this is instead of exercise. If we talk about facts, we know that factually it will cause an increase in cardiovascular, rate. It will cause this calorific burn. It is associated with improved insulin sensitivity, and you get reduced markers of metabolic syndrome. So those are the facts.
Those are the facts. Leading on from that, how effective are infrared saunas for detoxification?
Okay, so again, I think this is something that is somewhat debatable. There are scientific studies that have shown that it can result in detoxification. It can eliminate certain endocrine disrupting chemicals or hormone disruptors, endocrine disruptors or so on, heavy metals. But I think that this is something that is still not the highest level of evidence in terms of scientific literature. But there was a study published in 2018 that showed that people using the infrared sauna as compared to traditional saunas found significant excretion of toxic substances like lead, cadmium, mercury, and bisphosphenol A, which is also known as BPA, reinforcing the role of infrared saunas in generalized detoxification. But the level of evidence isn't the highest. So this is something that requires further research.
Thank you so much. And so my final question to round this off would be, are there any risks involved with using an infrared sauna?
Yeah, I think much of that comes down to the type, the quality of the make. Okay. So they're not all made the same. And actually, when you are heating something, you can also get release of chemicals and VOC, volatile organic compounds. Similar to what you smell on paint, for example, right? So these are called volatile organic compounds. And so just make sure that if you are buying an infrared sauna, you're taking into account the level of VOCs that should really be measured. And they will differ sauna to sauna. They will differ because of the quality, and you are dealing with heat and really quite extreme heat. So the quality of the wood, is it plastic or is it real wood? Is it safe? Is there BPA? All of these things, to what extent are those toxic? To what extent is it actually causing endocrine disruption? To what extent are those volatile organic compounds impacting you? We don't know. It's a question of much debate. There is a lot of discussion about this on Google, Sheikh Google, as I say, but very little of it is backed by scientific evidence. There is some evidence regarding it. So approach with caution. Children using saunas shouldn't stay in a sauna more than 10 minutes and should never be unsupervised. Pregnant women should not use a sauna. It can be detrimental to the health of the developing fetus, so please do not use it while you're pregnant. If you have a pacemaker or any underlying morbidity, any basically systemic illness, you must speak to your general practitioner before using an infrared sauna. So when we were talking about these improvements in cardiovascular health, we are talking about patients with general wellness. And if you have any other systemic illness, you must first please check. This is not bespoke advice, this is general advice. So generally speaking, it can help with stress. It can help with stress. It can help with anxiety. It can help with neurodegenerative illness. It can help with muscle recovery. Sitting in a nice warm sauna on a winter's day is lovely, but actually all year round, regular and consistent use of saunas, infrared sauna in particular, can help with the improvement of your health and well-being. But please let me caveat that if you do have systemic illness, speak to us first. We will never prescribe, we'll never put you in a sauna without checking your medical history anyway. So if you're under our care, we will check all of that. But if you're going elsewhere, please speak to your GP first.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you for coming.